Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after Jets' second straight win. First time we've seen that in a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to talk to you about something. I'm here to talk to you about hope. Now, I know hope has been in short supply with the Winnipeg Jets for a long time right now, and we've been looking for signs of hope, reasons to hope, if you will, for some time now. And in a game tonight against a very good Tampa Bay Lightning team, who, all things considered equal, were coming off a game last night. They didn't have to travel like the Winnipeg Jets, as short a flight as that may have been. They didn't go to overtime like the Winnipeg Jets did last night. This is an even situation, if not somewhat more in the favor of the Tampa Bay Lightning here, especially with the loss of Josh Morrissey. We all know what he means to this Winnipeg Jets team, those of us who are keeping our senses about us. Anyway, this is a game that I think that fans have been waiting for a long time, because I take a look at this game, and I don't think it's perfect by any means, but this is the first time in a long time I feel like I've seen the Winnipeg Jets put together something that's sustainable and could last them for some time going forward in a competitive environment, outside of playing teams below the playoff line, outside of just trying to get above the playoff line in a race that I really don't think is much of a race with the teams chasing the Winnipeg Jets. Once again, everyone has their moments of weakness. I had mine 2 shows ago where I started having a little bit of concern about the Winnipeg Jets making the playoffs. I don't have that anymore. To me, once again, this is a done deal. But I take a look at this game tonight, and for the first time, I have hope that the Winnipeg Jets have figured out a little bit of a way back to what they were. Far from perfect. We take a look at this. I'll say this time and time again. I do believe some of the Jets' offense is built off the counter-punching style of offense that they do. The problem with counter-punching offense is you got to get hit in the face a bunch of times before you throw the punch back. It seems to be how the Jets, in their natural state, like to compete. And I think it's you have to break that habit before you go to the playoffs, because sometimes if you're letting yourself get hit when you get into the playoffs and you're up against the biggest heavyweights, you don't survive those hits. But I take a look at the offense generated here tonight. Everything is from the Winnipeg Jets going hard to the front of the net. Everything that we see here, Brendan Dillon on the game-winning goal, goes hard to the front of the net, creates havoc, and that ends up being a good goal for the Winnipeg Jets. Nino Niederreiter's goal on the power play. This is a guy taking it to the front of the net, catching a puck that comes, that is just quite simply the Jets trying to get the puck on net, getting that and jamming it inside. That's sustainable. You saw Matthew Tkachuk do it to the Winnipeg Jets quite a bit last night. So you see the Jets go out and learn their lesson from that and go do the same thing. And then even though it's a shot from the point that goes into the net, it's the chaos created in front of the net that allows Nate Schmidt to score the game's first goal with just a sliding puck that goes through the pads. This is sustainable offense. This is the kind of things the Winnipeg Jets can hang their hats on. And I have to say, because I know where this argument is going to be, I've already had Scotty texting me on the phone. There's a clock on Scotty's phone that as soon as it hits a certain number of shots, Connor McDavid's the MVP again because he stopped this many shots in a game. It's as simple as that. I don't think it's as simple as that. I know that they get over 30 shots in this game. The Tampa Bay Lightning do. I know the Winnipeg Jets don't have as many shots in that game, maybe as many scoring chances. But I think to put this at the feet of Connor Hellebuyck and say he stopped over 30 shots, this is Connor Hellebuyck. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I do not think or subscribe to the idea at all that this is a game in which they just sat back and let Connor Hellebuyck take the wheel. If you take a look at the way the Winnipeg Jets defended in that third period, They turned a very, very good Tampa Bay Lightning team that plays very cohesively into a team where time and time again, one guy tried to skate it into the zone. And when they did get it into the zone, the Winnipeg Jets simply redirected them off towards the boards, in behind the net. The shots that we saw for the majority of that third period from the Tampa Bay Lightning was the Tampa Bay Lightning floating shots from distance on Connor Hellebuck. This, to me, the biggest reason to believe in this Winnipeg Jets team going forward is that when they finally were able to get a lead, and I know they had the lead last game, but they didn't hold it. And against the San Jose Sharks, they didn't hold it. When they got a lead, this to me was a definitive holding of their opponent and locking down a victory outside of the posts. We saw a lot of them in this game. I mean, there's something to be said there. But if I'm a Jets fan, if I'm a Jets coaching staff, if I'm a Jets player viewing this video before their next game, I love the way that I shut down this game. I love the way the Winnipeg Jets shut down this game. This is the kind of hockey you need to be able to play if you're going to go in. They suffocated them. It's not even a bend but don't break. They only gave the Tampa Bay Lightning a certain amount of leeway to play with. It was if they're realtors, they sold them undangerous land on this night. I like what the Winnipeg Jets did here. I think that this is a sustainable model going forward. I think that this is the best we've seen the Winnipeg Jets look in a long, long time. In fact, I think I have to go back to their victory. I think it was 4-1 over the Pittsburgh Penguins way, way back when Kenny Weeb, our sweet Kenny Weeb, made his debut on Hockey Night in Canada, even though it was a Friday night. That's how long I think it's been since we've seen the Winnipeg Jets play a game like this. If there's a reason to start hoping, I'm not saying plan the parade. I'm not saying go buy, your tickets for the third or fourth round. What I am saying is there's a path here in my mind suddenly for the Winnipeg Jets to take a look at it and say, remember when we were a really good and dangerous team? I see a doorway. I can peek through the keyhole and I can see where we were tonight. That keyhole opened up quite a bit wider. That is my take on the whole situation. But you know what? I'd like to get Ken's take on the whole situation. Man with the best music in the business. Here comes Ken. For those out there that don't realize what a machine our Kenny Weeb is, and let's throw Mikey McIntyre into the mix as well. They finished up last night. Kenny stuck around way longer than he should have for the K&R. We brought in Scott to cover off the last half of the show, and Ken left 5 minutes early. That's all. He allowed himself 5 minutes early before hopping on the road, driving through the night through alligator and snake-infested swamps on the way to go make sure he got to Tampa Bay to watch a ball game before moving on and doing what he's doing here tonight. These guys have far more salvo than me personally, I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it, Ken. We'll talk about the ball game later. Let's talk about the hockey game. What'd you see out there tonight?
Yeah, and don't forget I wrote my Weeb's World Sunday NHL column when I got to Tampa at 5 a.m. this morning. Between
okay,
5
now you're
and
just
7,
showing off.
so.
Now you're just showing off. Take it easy.
You just said I did it to get the work. I got my work done before I got to play, and then I went back to work. So in terms of the Saturday night game, I figured I would maybe apropos a little bit of the Stanley Cup activity behind me. Some nice photos here, Sean. And the last time you and I were in this building, we actually saw that silver mug awarded on this very ice. And had a couple of fun interviews in that process as well. And Gabe Landeskog brought the trophy over and gave her a little pump over his head while the media folks were finishing their work. But that's neither here nor there. Tonight, we saw the Jets up against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that is quite familiar with raising a trophy. And the Lightning sort of, Sean, I'm going to say it this way. I mean, the Lightning in some ways played the role of the Jet. Don't you think? They looked a little bit out of sorts in terms of what we're used to seeing from them. And part of that was the way that the Jets kind of dictated the play. And this was
A lot of it was that, yes.
Right. And then that was something that was very surprising to me. We've seen Tampa at their very best. So the fact that the Jets got a little bit more physically engaged, I thought was very important for this team. And we know that some buildings, run up the hits, much like Florida ran up the shot clock. But the Jets out-hit Tampa 42-33, and we've talked about this. The Jets aren't an overly physical team, but since adding Nino Niederreiter and Vlad Nemesnikov, they've got that component back up in the way that it needs to. And Cassie Campbell-Pascal, our colleague from Sportsnet and Hockey Night, she reached out to me recently and said, what's going on with the Jets? They're like 23rd in hits this year. And I said, the Jets have stopped being a physical team. They're a skill team. Now they kind of got back to those roots and got a little bit more of a grinding style going. While not taking the skill out of their game, they did bring a much more packaged playoff style game today against a team that knows how to grind it out against their opponents. So for me, I'm incredibly impressed by the Adam Lowry line with Morgan Barron and Mason Appleton. I thought that was one of the best games that trio has played. And yes, we understand that Mason Appleton missed almost 40 games this year because of the wrist injury, and that prevented them from really getting on much of a roll. But that line was so excellent, Sean, both in terms of playing defensive hockey against the top line, before with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, and it started with Stamkos, and then he was replaced by Brandon Hagel. They played very well, and they weren't just holding on for dear life in their own end. They pushed the play, they pushed the pace, they got involved physically. Mason Appleton did an unbelievable job of getting to the net, drawing a couple penalties. Then he set up Brendan Dillon for the play that resulted in the Morgan Barron game winner. The Jets' fourth line was on the ice for the Nate Schmidt goal. We talked the other night about how the Jets were back to playing the fourth line 5 minutes and how that was not going to be sustainable. And on a night where Josh Morrissey was not available, the Jets' defense core stood up to be counted in this game. Brendan Dillon near the top of that pile. Dylan DeMello, an excellent job. And Dylan Sandberg doing a great job of coming out of the press box and playing just over 17 minutes, sliding in nicely on that pairing with Dylan DeMello and also contributing to the penalty kill as well. Connor Hellebuyck was fantastic in this game, Sean. You're right. It was not the volume was high enough, 33 saves. It wasn't a 15 or 20 high danger chance affair. I think it was 10-9 if you include the power plays. And I think 8-7 in the natural stat trick had them at 5-on-5. But there were some quality saves made by Connor Hellebuyck. And this is the other thing. He let in a leaky goal early, 1:19 into the game to Alex Killorn, a shot that just went through him. He was in the right position, but it just kind of squeezed through. Some folks saying right away, you could tell, Sean, there were going to be people saying, the Jets shouldn't have started Hellebuyck on back-to-backs. He's too tired. And then never mind. He took care of business. The only other shot to beat him was Cirelli on the short-headed marker. Yes, Victor Hedman hit the post in the waning seconds. But this was a tidy game for the Winnipeg Jets. A team that looked like they were kind of hit by a car and left at the side of the road. And what do we say going into this trip, Sean? This could be a season-defining road trip for the Jets. They're not out of the woodwork yet. The Carolina Hurricanes have been blanked on consecutive games by the Vegas Golden Knights and New Jersey Devils. They're probably going to be an ornery bunch by the time the Jets arrive in Raleigh for that finale of this road trip. But the Jets have positioned themselves not only to split the trip or find a way to get 3 points. They've got 4 guaranteed with an opportunity to get greedy and get 6. And all of a sudden, then they're back in the chase with the Minnesota Wild, not just trying to maybe hold off the Colorado Avalanche. So this was an important win on a number of fronts. It was a gutsy character win. Adam Lowry, Sean, Mike and I saw Adam in the hallway yesterday. He didn't look like a guy who was going to be ready to go today. He was limping heavily, and he found a way to get it done. I mean, I expect that Josh Morrissey's absence will not be overly long. There is a chance he could play in Carolina depending on how the body feels when he gets there on the plane and if he can loosen up a little bit. But the max he's going to miss, I think, is probably 2 games. Maybe he has to be held out one more in order to be ready for the Boston game because the Jets have a back-to-back on the weekend. But he's not going to be out long-term, and that's good news for the Jets. I'll also mention right out of the gate, even though I've been at the buffet table here for a while, Pierre-Luc Dubois is now not expected to join the Jets in Raleigh, but he was on the ice again this morning. He has been skating, so there has been progress. While the Jets, Rick Bowness didn't want to say if he was in concussion protocol or not, one has to deduce that the fact that he was not here on this road trip, if it was just a regular upper body injury, he most likely would have been able to fly. But one of the symptoms, if you have concussion-like symptoms, flying is not great for those symptoms, which is one of the reasons why I think Rick said he might be able to join them later in the trip. So this isn't Pierre-Luc Dubois being on a vacation. He's trying to get himself ready, and I think it probably makes the most sense for him to return on Thursday against the Bruins and then play in the back-to-back against the Predators and the Blues. But just wrapping this up, Adam Lowry, gutsy game, excellent job on the penalty kill. Of course, he didn't have his normal legs. He fought his way through an injury, but he gave a gutsy effort and really provided some excellent leadership in this game. And I thought the Jets were, to a man, pretty impressive. And we've talked about it a ton. There have been lots of nights where the top guns have carried the Jets. Today it was the secondary, the complementary players, the complementary scorers, and some of the defensemen stepping up like Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon, coming through with a big assist in what was his 800th NHL game, which should be saluted as well. I mean, this is a guy who is a free agent signing, undrafted player, signed by the Dallas Stars. Brendan told us after the game, Sean, a young Brendan Dillon wanted one NHL game. Now he's got 800 and counting. So stick daps to Brendan Dillon for what he's been able to put together, not only in his career, but on a night when his defense corps really needed someone to step up. He was absolutely fantastic.
I got to tell you, Ken, our chat room looks absolutely glorious tonight because they're all over the Lamplighters and they are over the Got You Covered nominations going on here. Got to say, you look good as well. It was said earlier in the chat room, you look good, unlike someone else on the podcast. I'm looking around here and I only see 2 of us. So I think someone's taking a shot at me. I don't know why they would do that. I was in a suit just about a half an hour ago doing some hits with Elliot Friedman as we are covering the Board of Governors meetings. But hey, when in Florida, you got to dress down. So I'm taking the opportunity. But you wouldn't do that because you're too much of a pro, hopping on the road, driving through the night, showing up to the ball game, getting everything done while I was sleeping away the morning. Ken, you look like $1 million. One of the reasons you look like $1 million is because we always head on down to see Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi over on Corden Avenue. They will do you up right as they always do us upright. I've got some great, I said this last time, what I love is the seasonal kind of stuff. Like they really get the point of like, hey, if you're going and you've got like a summer wedding or if you're doing an event in the winter or something like that, they know exactly what you need to be looking like. They're going to be bringing in, probably in the process of it right now, bringing in their spring line and all those things. So if you need to freshen up that wardrobe, we got a guy. That guy is Frankie, and he's got some guys. That's the boys. So go see Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. They will do you up right. Thank you so much to them. Ken, what's your lamplighter of the night?
Oh, it's the Morgan Barron GWG. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yes, we know the Jets power play had been struggling, and the Nino Niederreiter goal was a nice goal by going to the net. But this is everything that the Jets are supposed to be doing. This is Mason Appleton attacking with speed, feeding a cross-ice pass to Brendan Dillon, who joins the rush. Dillon has a great opportunity, and he was actually upset with himself for not burying the original opportunity, which forced the Jets to sit through a massive review that seemed to take forever before Morgan Barron's ultimately the game winner would count. And Morgan Barron kind of chuckled when I asked what was going through his mind when the puck was laying there and the cage was essentially wide open for him. For a guy who had been doing a great job of getting to the net, but had seen guys like James Reimer come through with like bicycle kick saves to prevent him from scoring shorthanded when he drove to the net. this was a guy who was quite happy to get himself an empty net goal, essentially, and especially when that goal itself ends up being the game winner in such a critical tilt for the Winnipeg Jets, where they needed a couple of additional points after earning a victory over the Florida Panthers one night earlier in Sunrise. It was interesting. I certainly wasn't as confident as Brendan Dillon was that the goal was going to count, Sean. I don't think it was goalie interference, but there was a lot of contact, and the contact happened in the blue paint, and it wasn't because Sergachev pushed him in. It was the momentum of Brendan Dillon, but the other part of the equation that I think had to have been factored in, because Vasilevsky was pushing across, his momentum also kind of took him forward, which, Brendan Dillon then has some contact. But, Dillon did basically everything he could to try to get out of the way. And even Brendan himself said by the end, he basically was grabbing onto the crossbar to try to prevent there being a serious contact. But what did you think? I at first glance, I wasn't sure that was going to count. I thought it was going to, quite frankly, I thought it was going to be overturned. I said right away that John Cooper was going to be looking at challenging that call for goalie interference when I saw the contact.
I thought it was going to be overturned, and if it had been, it would have been a travesty if it was overturned. That was a situation where I don't necessarily agree with Brendan Dillon. Like, he kept closing in and made contact with the goaltender. I thought, in all fairness, he creates the goal by doing what he does, but at the same time, he very much put that goal in danger. I think a different ref and crew may have called that back, but if they did, again, I say it would have been a mistake, because to me, the defining factor of that play is that Vasilevsky doesn't fight through it. Like, he goes with his momentum and falls backwards, and it's not until he starts falling away from the play that Brendan Dillon makes that contact, and he kind of rolls with the contact. So there, it does look a little bit like he gets pushed down by Brendan Dillon. But if Brendan Dillon's not standing there, I think he's falling down anyway. Like, I think if he had made any kind of move to reverse his momentum and try and make his way back into the net, that goal doesn't count, and it probably shouldn't count at that stage. But to me, Vasilevsky is not making any attempt to get back into the net for that play. I think, Ken, he's not making an attempt because for whatever reason, I think he's actually got the puck trapped against his body, and he's trying to fall out of the net to take the puck wherever it is out with him. To me, that's a play that looked there. It was window dressed like it could have been a goaltending interference, but there is no universe in which that goal should have been overturned. That to me is a good goal, and I agree with you. I think it's the lamplighter because of exactly what Brendan Dillon does. He doesn't score the goal, but he goes in and kind of sets up the the chaos right in front of the goaltender that I do think has something to do with Vasilevsky. I just think when a guy closes in on you, your feeling is to kind of push away from him, which is what we saw there. So I do think that goal doesn't happen without Brendan Dillon creating the kind of mental push, but the physical push that he has nothing to do with the goal. It's a good goal, great play, the right kind of play that you want to be scoring. A game winner, no doubt, done the right way, exactly what the Jets should be looking for, and a reason to be happy about it. You have something to say before I give our
just a quick
friends
one.
at TCB a shout out?
I think I agree with you completely, but if you're the Lightning, you're thinking that Dillon banging into Vasilevsky prevented the reset. But to your point, Sean, Vasilevsky isn't battling to get back into the net. That's why
he's not resetting.
They call it incidental contact, right? So I can see why they challenged it. That's what I thought initially too. But like you said, his momentum was almost kind of carrying him into the corner, or at least out of the crease. And I think that's why ultimately it was allowed to count. But there's no doubt we're in agreement here. No need for the Kenny and Renny divorce lawyer this evening.
No.
We'll both agree that the good folks at Trans-Canada Brewing Company's sponsored goal, our lamplighter, is the Morgan Barron GWG in the second period.
Well, I think another thing you and I can agree on, Ken, is that the Lamplighter Amber Ale from Trans-Canada Brewing Company is both frosty and delicious. And if you'd like to get your hands on some, a good way to do it is to share with us your lamplighter, your favorite goal of the game. And if you do so, you automatically enter yourself to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to provide you with that, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 1290 Kenniston. They've got great beer, great pizza. They've got it all. You know what else they have, Ken? They've got the Kenny and Renny live show coming up next Saturday, less than a week from now. We would love to see you all there. If you want to come down, here's what you got to do. Head on over to this. Take your phone, scan that. Head on over to buy tickets. We would love to see you there. I've been in contact with a lot of the people heading down for the show. It's going to be great to spend time with you. Ken and I love spending our time with you here and chatting with you, but it's even better to do it face to face. So come on down on the 18th. It's going to be an early matinee game. Who knows? Could get pretty wild by the end of the night there. That's my intention, Ken. I'm planning on taking it deep. So if you want to come and get deep with Kenny and Renny, come on down on the 18th. Here's how you get your tickets. And Ken, if you could find the link
right here.
itself,
Yeah, I got it here. Yeah.
Right there. Copy and paste that if you want, everybody. Hey, Lamplighters, they taste great in the 8-pack. They taste even better live when you're pulling them out of the tap. So come on down and join Kenny and Renny for our live viewing and taping on March 18th. Going to be a great game and an important one because they're playing the Nashville Predators. I'm not sure what's happening with them right now. I think it's over, but we can pretend that it's not over and that's going to be a game that they're pushing the Jets.
They're up 3-2 on the Ducks in the early in the third here so far tonight.
Stop the presses. Stop the presses. Nashville's back in the race. You better get down there on March 18th because the Jets season will be on the line. Renny is telling you here first. Get down on March 18th to watch the Jets season on the line with Kenny and Renny. If you need someone to seatbelt you down, we can do that. We will talk you through your woes and celebrate with you through the high times. Come on down on March 18th. Join Kenny and Renny for the live show. Got to announce the winner of our
Remember, folks,
are you going to interrupt?
Yes, I am. One more time because, folks, also there was some confusion. There is also a show on March 25th, a live show, but I will be on the road in Los Angeles for my actual birthday. That's why the March 18th is the pre-celebration of the birthday, where Sean will actually also be celebrating on the 25th, and he wants all of you to also be with him, and I will join you virtually for that secondary party.
You said there's some confusion. I think there's some confusion on who the host of this show is at times. I'm not sure what's going on here. Someone get the Kenny and Renny divorce lawyer on the line. It's trending in that direction. Before we move on and do our Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game, I want to announce our winner of the Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter from our last show. That would be Vern Fectow. Vern, you are on the clock. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. I need your full name, which I'm guessing is Vern Fectow. And I need an email, and you send me those things before the Jets' next game. And you, my friend, have won yourself a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale from our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Ken, let's move it along. Your Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. People have been sharing this like crazy.
Yeah, there's some great
so
ones
far.
in there
Their
for
thoughts.
sure.
There's some great ones. What do you got?
Yeah, honorable mention for me is the Nino Niederreiter back check, which was absolutely fantastic. This was a sensational play, and folks don't realize the pass by Nick Paul. Steven Stamkos, if it gets to Stamkos, he's in all alone, and even though Connor Hellebuyck was playing great, Stamkos in alone is very, very dangerous. So the fact that Nino Niederreiter, who isn't a burner, was able to get back and get a stick on the puck. Yes, Connor Hellebuyck still had to make a save because of the redirection, but it was an incredible back check. But Sean, at a time when the Jets went from being up 3-1 and getting a delay of game penalty, which would have allowed them to potentially build a lead to 4-1, then they give up a shorthanded goal, and shortly thereafter, the Jets found themselves down 2 men to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have one of the best power plays in the National Hockey League. The fact that the Jets were able to kill off the 5-on-3 for 62 seconds and did not give up a single goal on that power play after giving up 3 the night before, where in Dylan DeMello's words, their PK got wrecked by the Panthers just in that one game, not overall. That to me was quite frankly, the we've got you covered sequence of the game, brought to you by the OGs, the good folks at the Johnston Group. The Jets' penalty kill as a whole, and specifically during that 5-on-3, they got the job done when they needed to.
I agree with you 100%, Ken. You nailed it. I like it when we agree. It's nice when we agree. Keeps the lawyers at bay. Who can afford those lawyer fees these days anyways? Great job with your got you covered pick of the game. Brought to you by the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. And you won't find two businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teladoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. And Ken, I'm down here with Elliot Friedman, Eric Engels, some of the Sportsnet peeps. Just saw Dan Rosen from the NHL. We were having a chat with him. Had a little bit of a conversation with Elliot, and I'm not going to share his thoughts. Those are his thoughts to share, but I thought it was interesting. He had some thoughts on the call tonight to put Hellebuck in after facing nearly 50 shots last night. He had an idea of what he thought that call said. What did that call say to you tonight, Ken?
Well, two things. Rick Bowness told us before the game that basically Hellebuck went in there and didn't beg them to play, but he said, I'm fresh, I'm healthy, and I'm ready, and I want the ball. And Rick Bowness said, when your number one guy tells you he wants to run with the ball, you let him run with it. So this is interesting to me. I had a feeling about this yesterday. The old spider senses were tingling, as I mentioned on the show. The spider senses are also tingling in this regard. What I think it meant was that the Jets saw this as a winnable game. We know that the Lightning have gone through a bit of a rough patch. We know that the Lightning were going to be starting Andrei Vasilevsky against them after playing Elliott the night before against the Chicago Blackhawks. We know the game had something on the line for both teams, so Hellebuck gives the Jets the best chance to win. What I also think, Sean, is that David Rittich could start against the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday, and Hellebuck will then be ready for the game against the Boston Bruins, and that would set it up for the weekend for Hellebuck to go Saturday against the Nashville Predators with that afternoon game. And then Sunday is kind of back to wide open. I think that Rittich could start Sunday, but because it's a night game after a day game, depending on the shot volume, Hellebuck might have a chance to go back-to-back, but that would be the fourth time of back-to-back in a small stretch of time here. So what it means to me is that the Jets had been reeling, and one win wasn't going to be enough for them to feel like they had got over the hump. 2 wins helps them get into a better situation. And now the Carolina Hurricanes, as I mentioned, have been blanked twice in a row. You give Rittich the start against Carolina, not because you think it's an easier game, but you're rewarding Hellebuck, but you're also rewarding the team for the job they did in this game here today, where, quite frankly, I think they did a pretty good job of minimizing the grade A opportunities for a team that can load up on the grade A opportunities. So, yeah, that's my interpretation, I think. Did you have a different interpretation?
Well, I'll say this. I think if you go back to that San Jose game, and it really shows you the life of a backup goaltender is one in which it's almost an untenable situation, right? Like it's almost a no-win situation unless you find yourself being a backup goaltender. This is when it's okay to be a backup goaltender, is when your career is on the rise, when everyone thinks your best years are ahead of you, when you're trying to establish a body of work coming into the NHL. When you end up being that backup goaltender who ends up being a career backup and you find yourself on the tail end of your career, it's a near no-win situation, because if we go back to the game against the San Jose Sharks, the Winnipeg Jets are winning that game 2-1. Now, the one goal that they do allow is a flub by David Riddick. And I don't want to boil it all down to that, because let's be honest, if you go back and you remember that game, David Riddick was giving up rebound after rebound after rebound. The Winnipeg Jets were doing a good job of clearing it, but he did not inspire confidence in that game. But what it comes down to in the end is he'd only allowed one goal until the last 10 seconds of the game, where the Sharks pull their goaltender, have the extra man, score a goal that really he had no chance on. But I do think that this decision here tonight says this about the coaching staff. We need wins down the stretch here. These things are important. Every game down the stretch is important. And I'm not saying that we've seen the last of David Riddick, but in games like this, I think if they feel that they can play Connor Hellebuyck, I think what they're saying is we would rather lose a game where Connor Hellebuyck comes out tired and not prepared because we've leaned on him too much than lose a game because we put in our backup goaltender who didn't show up. Because I think it's very easy for fans, for the media, for everybody, for a general manager, for a team owner to point to the coach and say, what were you doing starting that guy? You saw him in his last game. He already cost us one game against the San Jose Sharks. How some people would see this. I'm not saying that's the way I see it, but how some people would see this. And they get worried that situation is going to happen again. I don't think that this is a scenario by which the Jets should have gone down this road. Yes, they win here tonight. Yes, there's 2 points. Yes, everybody here is celebrating. And yes, probably a lot of people are going to say that I'm crazy that Connor Hellebuyck was in there. The one thing that I have to say about this is, if you take a look at his numbers over the years, you have to entertain the thought, and this was a conversation we had quite a bit down the stretch last year, Ken, that it's not unthinkable, it's very probable that Connor Hellebuyck as a goaltender can get tired. And I do think this. I don't think statistically there's much of a risk of the Jets falling out of the playoffs. That said, if they kept losing the way that they've been losing recently, that could change in a hurry. But I don't think there's a statistical risk of them falling out of the playoffs based on what we can expect to happen. And if they ride Connor Hellebuyck down the stretch to this degree where they're exposing him to the amount of shots that he faced in the last 2 games, if they do get into the playoffs and Connor Hellebuyck doesn't show well, to me, right off the bat, I will be saying very definitively, I think that they tired him out down the stretch. It's another way of saying, yes, they may have won the battle tonight, but if they're going to tire Connor Hellebuyck out down the stretch, there's a good chance they'll lose the war with this exact same tactic.
Which is why I think that it's going to be Riddick on Tuesday, Sean, and then you'll also see him Sunday against the Blues. So that would reduce the workload in what will be a busy week of hockey here for the Jets.
Sure.
And again, look at Riddick here. Riddick is at 19 games played, and his 17th start conceivably could come on Tuesday, and we thought he would be in that 20-ish range. So if he gets 2 starts this week, that gets him to 18 with what now? That would be 15 with 13 to play. So I think he's going to hit his numbers.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Hey, why don't you give a shout out to our main man, Sweet Lou?
Yeah, for the folks, if you have any realty needs that you would like to have met, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're wondering what that house on the corner is worth, or maybe looking to move into another part of the city, you can contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's Lou at LOUFURLAN.ca. And for his listings, you can check it out at www.louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this program that you're either watching or listening. And for that, we are very grateful.
I'd just like to give a shout out to all the Kenny and Renny winners out there. And by that, I don't mean the people with the shovels or the lampies at home. It's the people who show up when the Jets win. I can see our numbers are spiked. Ken, I actually had a very
over
good
400. Look at this.
I had a very good conversation in the Montreal airport with a Kenny and Renny viewer who came up and showed me his podcast list, and we were right at the top. And he admitted to being one of the people who can't stand watching the show after a loss. They just get too frustrated. I'm here to say Kenny and Renny, they make pretty good counselors on a day after a bad loss. You don't have to hide from losses. You can come This is a support group as much as it is a celebration group. So the extra people in our room right now who have showed up because they can handle wins and get scared away by losses, stick around a little longer. Give us a chance to walk you through your grieving process, and we will make it worth your while. Absolutely no doubt. Ken, you had talked about the different parts contributing to the win here. I think that that's something that's really important. We had the conversation a couple games ago where the Jets just couldn't seem to figure it out. And I had said, open yourselves to the thought process that if you are trying to tell me that early in the season when the Jets were winning games, they didn't deserve to win, and your response to that was good teams find ways to win games. And I said you had to open yourself up to the idea then that lately bad teams find ways to lose games. I think tonight is a really good example of like a complete and total effort all around for the Winnipeg Jets to win a game, and the last game as well. You got a power play that hasn't been running that starts to show up on a night like tonight. You've got a contribution up and down the lineup. You've got semblance of the Rick Bowness system in that third period, that while it did allow for shots, it didn't allow for a lot of high danger shots. I thought the Jets showed a real good job shutting that down, kind of akin, I would say, to the way that the Minnesota Wild shut the Winnipeg Jets down in the third period in their game just a few games ago. And then you get Connor Hellebuyck standing tall throughout the game the way that he did. This to me is a piece of this victory goes to so many people here. And I think even last night you can say the same thing. Yes, Mark Scheifele has 2 goals, but Vladimir Namestnikov has 2 goals. Maybe not exactly what you're expecting coming out of that. Connor Hellebuyck definitely had a piece of that win last night. We're starting to see enough pieces adding up and working together that it adds up to victories. A power play chipping in at the right time. The penalty kill going 3 for 3 tonight on this night. Yes, on the power play, they gave a goal back, but these are all things that you're starting to see enough elements of the Jets game adding up that they are getting over the hump, not just sliding just under the bar. What do you think we are seeing here? Do you think that this is kind of the practice habits of the Winnipeg Jets catching up? Because I know Rick Bowness is really big on that he'd started to see things happening in the practices that he was waiting for them to transfer to games. Where do you see the Winnipeg Jets game at right now as far as a complete game for the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, this was a big step in the process. I thought they were better in a lot of areas today than they were the game before against Florida, where their puck management was very poor. They protected the puck a lot better. Yes, there were still a couple of head scratcher plays, but in terms of the numbers, they were much better, Sean, in the turnover battle here. 12 giveaways for the Lightning and only 4 for the Jets. So that was a considerable difference in terms of output. I thought that one big thing for me, Sean, we knew this was going to be a challenge for the Jets defense corps, being without Josh Morrissey, who's been so critical to the Jets' success this year. Scott O'Neill, who runs the defenseman, spoke after the game. He was so impressed by the ability to get the puck moving north, and that is something that there have been tons of times where, and I'm not just blaming the defenseman here, Sean, but there have been times where the Jets have not played that connected game, where their exits and outlets have not been available. So many times we saw them rimming pucks around the boards and putting their wingers in bad spots. Today they were getting the puck moving, finding guys in stride, and really kind of attacking with some speed. So I thought the defense corps as a whole was fantastic. I really loved the way that Dylan Sandberg played, and we've talked about this. I don't agree with the Jets taking Dylan Sandberg out of the lineup to begin with. I think he's had a solid year on a lot of fronts, and I think they should be leaning on him. His mobility and ability to box out and some of the things that he does well. I thought in the game before he was scratched, he was a little bit more physical than what we've seen before, but we know that it's part of his game that he's going to grow into. He's such a good penalty killer. We know that Neil Pionk needs to play better. There's still times where he's still having some issues in his own zone. And today, It wasn't only his fault because the Jets kind of forced the puck back to him, but Anthony Cirelli gets behind Neil Pionk. He's the last man, and he can't catch him because he's not moving the way that we're used to him moving in previous seasons. So he's a guy the Jets need to step up, and I thought that his body of work lately had been a little bit better again. I think that there were still some moments where he played well. What I liked about Pionk, I saw that feisty side of him coming to the forefront again today. But overall, I said this before, the Jets need Neil Pionk to be one of their top 3 defensemen during the stretch run. That's a simple fact. And nobody's playing better than Josh Morrissey. We know that. But Neil Pionk needs to be in that top 3 element. And if he is, then the Jets can have a chance to... what they can do overall, that's up to them. But Sean, to your original question, what I think is that what you and I were talking about and what I talked about with Hustler, the Jets are better equipped to prevent the free fall from spiraling out of control. This isn't to say that 2 wins puts that 7 out of 8 or 2 wins in 11 completely in the rearview mirror, because it doesn't. But what it does mean is that they had 2 games where their process was good and they got no results, and now they've had 2 games where they've had results, and then now today I would argue that they had results and process that got the job done. So can they continue on that front moving forward? To me, Brendan Dillon dropped a good teams find a way to win in his post-game scrum today, because I think, quite frankly, some of these guys were sick and tired of hearing about some of their past stumbles, if you will, for lack of a better term. So it's interesting. They're not out of the woods yet. They still have a lot of work to do just to punch their ticket. But by winning these last 2 games, Sean, suddenly they've put themselves back into the equation for being in the top 3 and not just hanging on for dear life and hoping that they can hang on for 8th in the West and that they don't get hunted down by someone like Nashville and Calgary, who was up big, and maybe they've already wrapped that game up here. They have 5-1. So Calgary's hanging around, but for the Jets, they don't want to just hang around. I understand what you're saying, Sean. I'm just saying that right now, they're still within striking distance. So in a 15-game block, the Jets can't afford a lengthy losing streak. So by winning consecutive games, that puts them in a better headspace, that helps them with their confidence. And today was so massive because, as you mentioned, Scheifele was so important. The top 2 lines were outstanding again yesterday. And I thought the checking line was pretty good. But the top 2 lines carried them the night before. And today, the top 2 lines were held off the score sheet, but that didn't mean that they played poorly. So I think that was important for them to get those contributions from the complementary players.
A couple things that we need to talk about here. You were bringing up the Pionk play. I have a big disagreement with you on that. And you know what? Maybe I'm off on this one. I'm sure, hey, there's something for the chat room to jump all over.
Sorry, hang on. I just want to finish my thought. I didn't maybe explain that as well. I thought he should have hammered the original shot instead of forcing it to Wheeler. So that is where I think that Pionk made the error in that sequence.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't disagree more.
Oh. You think forcing it back to Wheeler on the wall was a better play?
Forcing it back to Wheeler.
Area.
He moved it over to Wheeler. Wheeler had a wide open net, and it regardless of the fact that there was a guy in that shooting lane, there was all kinds of chaos in front of the net. It's Wheeler who forces the pass to Pionk and puts him in an absolutely terrible spot. Yeah, I get the idea that that Cirelli is in behind him, but I don't think that's Pionk's fault.
Oh, I'm not blaming him for that.
To me, this is entirely on Blake Wheeler in that play. Pionk gets it to Wheeler, who, if he chooses to, at the very least, has time. If he acts on it right away and puts it towards the net, there's a good chance he shoots the puck and it goes into a wide open net if he can get it around the defenseman standing in that lane. At the very least, if he gets it to the front of the net, it's chaos in front of the net, and the Jets have an opportunity to capitalize on it. Blake Wheeler takes and pulls the pin on the hand grenade and throws it in Pionk's feet, and Pionk then is left with a situation. There's 2 things he could have done there. He could have tried to get it through, which he did. It didn't work out. It goes the other way. Or he can just move it right straight back to Blake Wheeler, which is almost a pointless play. I think part of you is actually thinking, well, he moved it here for some reason. He obviously doesn't want it on the boards. This is an overpassing situation from Blake Wheeler, who can be guilty of overpassing in that situation. But let's not just get into a situation here where Neil Pionk, who's made his mistakes, who the chat room and who a lot of Jets Twitter and a lot of the Jets fan base likes to beat on. I don't see this as being a Neil Pionk problem at all. This was Pionk being put in a terribly unnecessary spot by the guy who's essentially in charge of quarterbacking that power play. I don't fault Pionk at all for this. Pionk got it on his stick with a guy closing in and tried to move it as quick as possible to where it should have been going in the first place when it was on Blake Wheeler's stick, to the front of the net where they could capitalize on the chaos. I do not put any of the blame in that situation on Pionk. Yes, if he would have moved it instantly back to Wheeler in a tight spot where the pin had been pulled and he has it on his stick, and there's very little time to make that decision, maybe it would have turned out better. But he had a teammate put him under duress in that situation. If you are the opposition, you want to take a player's time and space away. If you are passing the puck to someone on your own team, you want to give it to someone with time and space. This was exactly the play that the Tampa Bay Lightning would have liked Blake Wheeler to make, and that is why it's in the back of the Winnipeg Jets net.
Sure. I just thought that he could have shot initially, and sure, Blake overpassed. I think
that's an overpassing of egregious proportions by a guy who often overpasses, who often gets sucked into that, no doubt.
I've got nothing else on that subject.
Weaver's got something. Weaver says Kenny loves Wheeler. Oh, yeah. Great timing, Weaver. That is some great timing on the show there.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's move it on here. I did want to talk about this quickly as well. You were talking about being surprised about how the Lightning played here tonight. I have to say, Ken, at this stage, I would have been with you in that camp not that long ago. I'm not anymore. If you take a look at the last 3 times the Winnipeg Jets have played the Tampa Bay Lightning, there's something about the Jets that seems to bring out the very worst, or maybe a better way of saying this is the most reckless in the Tampa Bay Lightning. They make a lot of plays that I don't typically see them make. Now, maybe once again, and there is something to be said that the Tampa Bay Lightning, maybe the Jets caught the Tampa Bay Lightning on a little bit of a valley, a little bit of a downslope here. They haven't been playing their best hockey as of late, so maybe it's a little bit of that, but I don't know. I think there's something about the style of play that the Winnipeg Jets play, and I also do think that there's just something about when some teams play certain other teams that they just have a feel, a flow of how they handle them. I'm going to tell you this right now, and it's a crazy thing to say, but it's at the same time probably not that dangerous to say, because the only time we would ever be able to test this theory is if the Winnipeg Jets went to the Stanley Cup final and the Tampa Bay Lightning went to the Stanley Cup final. I think the Winnipeg Jets, for whatever reason, in the roster construction that they have, line up really well against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they've got their number. I think they get in their heads. I think the way that they shut them down in the third, like there was a play there where Braden Point picked up the puck in his own end, skated it through the neutral zone and tried to skate it in with 3 Jets defenders just standing there. Braden Point is one of the smartest playoff type players you will find out there. And to me, the last guy that you would find trying to skate a puck through 3 guys in an effort to win a game. And not only was he doing it tonight, but if you go back and you check the receipts from the last time they played, he was doing the same thing back then as well. The Winnipeg Jets do a good job of disrupting the passing game of the Tampa Bay Lightning, of making those players feel like they're on an island, and triggering the instincts of the very good players on the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Stamkoses, the Kucherovs, the Braden Points, triggering their minor hockey instincts where they're like, you know what, fine, I'll do it myself. I'll grab this, I'll skate it through everybody, I'll go through everyone, I'll be Connor McDavid, and I'll go score this goal. The Winnipeg Jets, in that third period especially, had the Tampa Bay Lightning playing the game on the Winnipeg Jets terms, the way the Winnipeg Jets wanted them to play it. I thought it was a thing of beauty, and I don't know what it is other than the fact that they seem to play them right, but I'll say it one last time. The Winnipeg Jets have the Tampa Bay Lightning's number.
Well, they certainly didn't have it last year in when they rolled through Tampa and they got smoked by both the Panthers and the Lightning. But you're right. I mean, there have been times where they've given them some difficulties, and it's interesting, Sean. We know this, that when John Cooper was in Winnipeg, when I asked him about Connor Hellebuck, he loves Connor Hellebuck. He loved having Connor Hellebuck on the team North America at the World Cup. He raved about Josh Morrissey and having him at the World Championship. He's got a lot of respect for this team, and right now, the Lightning are like a lot of those teams. I wouldn't say that they're bored, but this is a team that knows how to rise the occasion and flip the switch when the playoffs start. Right now, they're in a bit of a funk. So I think that, you were just sitting with Elliot. What Elliot always says, and he said it numerous times on the Merrick Show recently, everyone's thinking that Toronto's going to just steamroll the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's wait and see what happens when the playoffs start. It's certainly possible that happens, but the Lightning know how to win, and you talked about it the other day, Sean, about when we say the West is wide open, respect the Avalanche. I think people still need to respect the Lightning until they get bounced. They're a team that knows how to win. They can crank up the intensity. They know what it takes, and their roster construction, to me, when you've got Nick Paul in a third line with Tanner Jeannot and Ross Colton, that's a pretty good third line. So I don't think that they're down and out in Beverly Hills or that they can't go on a run. But right now they're not playing like a team that could steamroll. And part of that is injury related, Sean. You saw it. I know you did. When Kyle Connor pulled away, Victor Hedman is banged up, man. Victor Hedman couldn't stay in the frame. When Kyle Connor they were basically at the equal footing, and Kyle Connor pulled away from him, and Vasilevsky made a ridiculous right pad save. It looked like Kyle Connor was going to, turn him into a pretzel like he does against so many other goalies, and Vasilevsky made an unreal save. And here's the other thing about Vasilevsky, Sean. He gave up 3 on 11, and then all of a sudden in the third, when the Jets got opportunities, he stood tall after giving up that third goal. After that, it was no more for him, right? So
that's your what's his name moment. Oilers 80s goaltender.
Grant Fuhr.
That's your Grant Fuhr moment you like to talk about. Yeah.
Anyway, so
are you sorry, I didn't mean to. I feel like I interrupted your flow there.
No,
continue on.
I'm done with the Lightning. I'm done for them for now. But I do have, we've got a lot of folks who listen a lot, and we know this is a great time of year for hockey. But something I do need to share right now. Derek Ingram is a guy who has joined us live from the Masters at Augusta. Big proud dad moment for DI, Sean. Adam Ingram with the game winner tonight as St. Cloud advances in their game. And we know it's been an interesting year for Adam. Not as much ice time at times, but they were able to knock out the University of Minnesota Duluth in a 3-1 victory in Game 3 today to advance. They'll now play UND at Xcel Energy Center in the semifinals. So that is a massive moment for a proud Manitoban, graduate of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League program, of which I'm quite proud of folks who happen to roll from there. And by coincidence, I've got the orange going for the Winkler Flyers, Sean. They celebrated the 25th anniversary of their last MJHL championship and had an alumni game on the weekend that I was very sorry to miss out on, but it looked like they had a fantastic time down in Winkler there, celebrating some of the past teams and the present. So just wanted to get that quick MJ plug in there.
Well, hey, if we're going to go down that road, I think he was a teammate of yours, Lonnie Liskey from Beausejour.
Yeah,
was
there
he
you
a
go,
teammate of yours? Okay,
He
Lonnie
was.
Liskey's son, Breck Liskey, and his Northern Alberta Extreme, I think that they are called. It's a prep school
program,
up in Northern Alberta. They won the Western Canadians, and Breck played a big role in it down the stretch. They won the semifinal, I believe, with like 10 seconds left on the clock as he set up a guy for the game winner, and then they came back down 2-0 and 3-2 to win in the final. And if I think Breck had one of those goals there as well. So Breck is an Eastman boy out of the Beausejour area. I played hockey with Lonnie's brothers out of the Beausejour area. played a lot of years, battled against Lonnie in the great Lactabani Blues Beausejour Beavers wars of the 2000s, which the Blues won some championships and the Beavers weren't able to. That it's a great regret of theirs. I'm sure it is, Ken.
Oh, boy.
Anyways, Breck doing a really great job heading into his draft year. His another kid out of there is, I always talk about my buddy Dwight. His son Benson was playing for the program out of Pilot Mound as well. Those two Manitoba-born, Eastman born and raised and trained defensemen, some of the top scoring defensemen in all of Western Canada. So some really great talent, not just coming out of Manitoba, but a couple of guys that I grew up playing hockey with and against. The next generation coming along and looking really good. So congratulations for all of them. Great job there. I had one last thing I wanted to say. Give me just your thoughts on Dylan wearing the A on the evening.
Yeah, not a surprise. This is a guy who I talked about going into the year was someone who I thought could wear a letter for this team. He's played on a couple of organizations and has been in some good playoff runs with those teams. So I think it was a natural decision. There were a couple folks who reached out to sort of see what my thoughts were, and Brendan was the first person I thought of. I thought Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers would be two other options. Nate Schmidt maybe in that mix as well. But to me, Brendan Dillon is just a guy who is such a good barometer of where a team's head is at. He speaks with a little bit of that Brian Little truth serum, I think, Sean. I think that's sort of the conscience. I think that Brendan Dillon is sort of, it was Brian Little and then it was Paul Stastny. I feel like Brendan Dillon is a little bit of the conscience of this team in terms to sometimes having to dig into some of the issues that some folks would rather turn the other way or turn the other cheek on. So to me, I thought it was a really smart call by the coaching staff and no real surprise to me at all. This is a guy who is another great example, and we talked about this in our hits during training camp, Sean, for Sportsnet. Brendan's a guy that doesn't need a letter to lead, but I think this was a natural situation to throw that letter on him to show how important his voice is with the team like this.
No doubt. Oh, I remembered what I wanted to say. To your point about the Tampa Bay Lightning, I do have to say the Tampa Bay Lightning are in a fairly unique position that probably should be pointed out. This is a team that, as Kenny pointed out, and I'm going to just entirely back up Kenny's theory on this entire thing. This is a team that knows how to play when the chips are on the table. There's no chips on the table right now for the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning have known for a long time they're not catching the Toronto Maple Leafs for second in that division. They're not being caught by the wild card teams. They are going to finish third in their division, and they are going to play the Toronto Maple Leafs when it is all said and done. That is a unique position to be in. The Winnipeg Jets, at the very least, and have all along had something to play for. Before they fell apart, they had first place to play for. Ever since then, they've had second or third place to play for. Now they've put themselves into a position where they have the final playoff spot to play for on a night where, actually, if you take a look around the league, Ken, Vegas wins. I know that's not the biggest So this is, I don't know if that was me who cut out or you, Ken.
I thought you did, but I didn't hear you.
It must have been me. The point I was trying to make is Calgary won. Minnesota's getting at least a point. Nashville won. Vegas won. This is a night where, if you take a look at it from like a chasing people down perspective, other than the Colorado Avalanche, who weren't playing here tonight, really the Jets didn't accomplish a lot here tonight, but they don't need to accomplish a lot. All they need to do is keep winning and keep those teams from catching them. If you're the Calgary Flames and you are the Nashville Predators, this is just one of those nights where you win and you're like, great, we're still 6 points behind the Winnipeg Jets. It feels like an unsolvable riddle. I think it is going to be an unsolvable riddle for them, but back to the point of the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is a team that has absolutely nothing to play for. That should be taken into account on a night like tonight. That said, I'm not taking anything away from the Winnipeg Jets victory. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. To me, this is the best game the Winnipeg Jets have played since that 4-1 dominant victory they had against the Penguins. So good to see them. I don't know why my internet is crapping out at this point. But anyway, good to see the Jets find a game that looks to be sustainable down the stretch here. I'm going to say bye here before this entire thing blows up.
Idea.
But before I do, I wanted to say it is time to throw a spotlight on the comments and choose a standout comment for the Home Field Dig Deeper Award. And for that, we are going to go to... Where is it here? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness, Ken. I had it, and I lost it. Where'd it go?
We got a few starred here.
Well, this is it. This is the one I like the most. Andrew Haleko says sustainable, tidy, ballsy, all good adjectives for tonight's play. I think Andrew Haleko is absolutely nailing it with each of these descriptions. There's a lot to hang your hat on in this Winnipeg Jets victory. I think the Winnipeg Jets team is as confident now as I've seen it since mid-January. I'm interested to see how that confidence plays out as they go into their next game against the Carolina Hurricanes. We will all see, and we will all chat with you after that. Before we do go, Ken has something to say. Oh, yeah, I wanted to give a shout-out to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union. And in order to do that, I just had to say, if you're thinking about investing, invest in a Cambrian GIC and earn a higher rate than your savings account with a guaranteed return. All deposits guaranteed without limit by the Deposit Guarantee Corporation of Manitoba. Check out Cambrian's GIC rates at cambrian.mb.ca/rates. Book an appointment online and meet online. All right, Ken, appreciate your time. Great job here tonight. Safe travels. On to your next stop. Chat room, you rocked it as usual, and I'll end this the same way I always do. If you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate the contributions and our sponsors who fight to keep these conversations going on in these spaces. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much, everybody. We will chat with you after the next big game. Jets going for 3 straight wins against a juggernaut in the Carolina Hurricanes. We will see everybody after that game.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.